Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to Going Vocal. Today, we're going to be discussing open communication and honest speaking in society. So many people across the world find it difficult to speak honestly about who they are, what they are. And in fact, we find certain societies being better at doing open communication than other societies. And so we'll just be discussing our take on, the effects it has on society and the effects it has on the individual. So yes, on the panel we have Hemant and we have Anupam. Most of you guys who've been watching our show are well aware of these two gentlemen who have very vivid and interesting thoughts. All right, yes, guys, what is your take on open communication and honest speaking? Let's hear it, Anupam. What do you feel?
Thank you, Rahul. Very interesting topic today. Yes, open communication. For me, I think it's important to be honest, and to be being honest, I think is one of the traits of having the open communication with people, so that you get instant connection with people. If you are honest, people will not trust you, and I think the bonding that can happen between the two.
You mean if you're not honest?
Yes,
you're
if you are
not honest.
Yes, and open communication is, I think, one of the factors where we see in India is kind of a taboo, where people are really afraid of sharing their problems because they feel that people can take advantage of them. They feel that people can also judge them instead of helping out with their problems. They can be judged. Then excessive personal disclosure can also create problems in your professional lives as well, because sometimes if you try to be very honest with people in and around your professional circle, they might take undue advantage of you. So because of these things, I think people try to not do open communication. But I think on the other hand, we have a lot of flaws as well, where in case if you are, like I said, it creates an instant connection, and you do not create a barrier when you are speaking to someone. And in case you do not have a barrier, you create you gel up well with people, and people also feel that now you are a person who can be trusted, because he is open to all the thoughts that he has about himself, and also he also shares right thoughts about others. But I think there can be some problems where people cannot take it well. Maybe if you're sharing some feedback, like I think in professional circle, or maybe in personal circles as well, where we try to share our feedback, honest feedback. Feedback is a mechanism where it's a very old strategy where people can share their feedback, create a connection, gel up well with each other. That is how I think the feedback culture is promoted especially I'm talking about the professional circle. But if you see in offices, if you try to be honest with people, try to tell them their problems regarding their behavior, if you feel that certain things are not which you do not like about them, if you try to share them very honestly, I think it can be taken in a negative way. So there has to be a way where you are saying that I think the right communication, open communication, and in the right way, with empathy. Like if you want to say someone that you are wrong, I think this can discourage someone and can hurt their feelings as well. Maybe you can say, I think you might be right, but I have different opinions about this. So these kind of words, or maybe reframing your sentences with people, I think that should be how we should speak to others, and be open with their conviction. But also we have to understand we do not cross the lines. Of course, we have seen that people, it's a social, especially in social sites, you see people share their honest opinions. They speak about themselves, about others, share their lot of opinions, but we have also seen that it can hurt someone. So that also has to be taken care, especially when you see comedians nowadays, where they do a lot of comedies and about others, taking small, I think judging people based on their comedies and creating some comments. I think it can hurt them. So this is how I feel, Rahul.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually, Anupam. The thing is that you've given us something very deep insights into what it is that we're discussing here. But there is what I see is something known as standards-based communication, where you have a lot of people, they set a certain standard. Like, for instance, this is what should be, this is what a social standard should be, and they never discuss anything other than that. So they twist information surrounding them and surrounding those that they know, and try to, reach those particular standards, wherein they're not really telling the truth actually. And when they don't really express the truth at all, you tend to see that they are not able to deal with many things. So they're saying something, like for instance, they say that there's something hypocritical societies, rather, societies that are hypocritical. They do certain things and then they gaslight themselves and believe that they're not doing anything like that, because they keep telling themselves that they're living to certain standards. So they take whatever that little pieces of information that they have about themselves or their society and keep projecting it according to the standards, and completely forget all the nonsense that is being done. All the nonsense that is being done. So, I find that though you're extremely correct that sometimes people do get hurt, I think that sometimes people should get hurt. They should get hurt in order to make sure that those kind of changes happen in society. And if they don't get hurt, they might not make those changes, or at least it won't be open. I think societies that are more open about themselves have a way to release from the negative energy from their spirits. They're not, because hypocrisy comes with cost. That's what I feel. I don't know. What do you think, Hemant? Do you feel that hypocrisy,
Yes.
where you try to keep a certain standard, but that is not truthful speaking? Like, you keep telling yourself that this is who I am, this is who I am. But that's example. This is the case of a particular professor who is very good at, he's a very educated man, he's from Iran. But he keeps talking about Epstein files. Of course, the Epstein files are a terrible thing, where we had Prince Andrew, having 16-year-old and 17-year-old girls involved in sex crimes, basically. But the same event occurs in his society. Only thing is, it's legal. They have much older men, 50-year-old men who are marrying 18-year-old girls and 17-year-old girls. But he's not able to face that. But he keeps repeating the Epstein class, and keeps calling them the Epstein class, as if, because he's not able to see in his own society certain things that are occurring, and he cannot open himself out to truths that exist in his own society. So his mind has been constructed in a certain pattern because of this form of standardization, and hypocrisy, where we have those hypocritical societies. So I think that if we are open, we're more and more open about our communication, we tend to have a society that can be set free from that, and a society that can actually begin to develop itself in a new way, and become better, rather than, because I feel that gaslit societies and people who lie to themselves a lot carry with them a tremendous burden, a tremendous pain within themselves, and they carry it all through their lives. So it is something horrible that they carry, and I feel that psychologies that are able to be more honest and speak more honestly about who they are, without fears or without any kinds of issues, tend to release the psychological burden that they carry with them, because what you carry in your mind can be more weight than you can ever expect to carry on your body. So sometimes psychological burdens can be intense. So I feel that that's one of the things. But one other point that that was very interesting in your thing was your discussion on what do you call it? Professional aspects around open communication. I'd like to hear, Hemant, your take on that also. What do you think in the professional environment? How do you think? Because Anupam mentioned certain things about your colleagues affecting you. I mean, taking whatever you're saying, your openness for granted, and using that perhaps as a weapon against you, and other problems in open communication around the workplace. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rahul and Anupam. Hi. Yes, actually, professional, this open communication, as Anupam rightly said, non-professional and professional. In both situations, the way you present it has to be different. Why I tell you is I have worked about 25, 26 years in corporate. Yes, in the corporate or in your professional life, you have to be open, but the way you present things should be in such a way that you don't hurt your, you don't, what should I say, the message should go down. So that is where you have to use your assertive communication. So the way you present it has to be more in such a way that the person listening understands that there needs to be some corrective action taken for bettering the company. Because the thing is, if you are just too open in companies, either it may affect your promotion or it may affect your pay scale. Open people in general are not
Basically,
liked.
boundaries are
They are not,
needed. So we're discussing
yes,
something about boundaries are needed.
exactly. Yes, but you have to, because there might be some mistake which has been made by your superior. So definitely you will have to point out that mistake. There's no point in keeping being a silent spectator and just push it aside, because that will be detrimental. Because if you are not open, I mean, see, this professional or being open in professional environment is a very tricky thing. The thing is, if you are not open, what happens is you lose your authentic self as a subordinate. If you are not open, you are not yourself. See, Mahatma Gandhi there is a very famous quote of Mahatma Gandhi where he says that your speech should be incongruent with your thoughts. So what we think we should speak, but unfortunately in India, we just because we fear either maybe professionally we fear that if we speak, it might affect our future, it might affect our promotion, as I said earlier. So you will have to speak it out. You'll have to speak it out, because only then you become your authentic self at the end of the day.
Exactly.
The thing is, how you present it, that is very important. The tone, the language that is used, despite being so professional in your speaking openly, even then probably the result might be negative. But even then, at least you have had the thrill to speak out and do something very creative. So rather than being silent, so professional, as Ranupam rightly said, as far as being open or having open communication in a professional environment, you will have to be more aware and agile or vigilant and alert in the way you speak. So your communication tone of your communication and the way you speak is very important, Mr. Rao.
Right,
So
right.
I would like to add
People
over
assert,
here. Yes, yes. Thanks, Hemant, for yours. I think another aspect of open communication also is where how your society is. Because if we consider our societies, especially in India, I think open communication is not much appreciated. If you see the Western world, where if you talk about especially Americans, they speak very openly about their culture, their own should I say their own problems also they discuss it very openly, and that is how their culture is. I think in case if you want to bring that to India, it has to be a cultural shift, not only the mindset of an individual. Because in case if you are open, you are very speaking very openly to others, but your society will not accept you, and that is how I think even if you are
I appreciate,
different from others.
I know where you're going, Anupam. May I just
Yeah.
cut in if it's okay?
Yes, yes, yeah, okay.
Just for a few minutes. The thing is that I appreciate what you said. He said something that's really right. You have to look at the cultural context also. But what do you think, like, in terms of not all cultures benefit their societies completely, you know? So certain cultures impose certain restrictions or certain ways of living that, in fact, affect the psychological process a little bit more. Like I feel a lot of Indian people, vis-a-vis or comparatively to others, such as Nigerians or other people who I find a little bit more open, I find the confidence is not there. You know, I find that a lot of Indian people don't have that level of confidence at a larger scale. Do you feel that that culture is imposing that by hiding things about who we are and always feeling slightly shy about who we are and what it is that we are? Because, for instance, I've never seen Indian people ever openly discuss issues in our culture to other people. We never openly discuss it. We let them assume that our culture is exactly the same. That the same problems, the same kind of mindset at the level. We just let them assume that, and we never discuss it amongst ourselves either. But do you think that leaves us with these burdens that affect our confidence once we go face other people, in foreign lands, and once we find ourselves feeling as if we are less than them. We don't have the courage to speak out in front of them. We feel ashamed of, because if you see a Nigerian, because I've seen Nigerians, when they go to the US or they go anywhere else, they seem to have extraordinary confidence around
Yeah.
them, which I see lacking in many people from India. You know, I don't see that kind of confidence, or Australians who go to the US, or British people who go to different parts of the world. I feel that they have more confidence than when Indians go to certain. And I feel that Indians always feel a sense of, I'm not up to the mark. Let me just escape with my dignity. This kind of feeling. So I think that comes from our openness as a society. Our openness is very crucial, because I don't think that level I've seen with others like Samoans or other people that I've seen, especially like on television. If you look on television, you see a lot of people coming from foreign lands occupying space in American television, but you don't see that happening with Indian people. We don't come from India and occupy. We may, if we're raised in India, if we're raised in the US or in Canada, then our culture is different, right? We don't come with the same culture. Like, I don't think someone who's raised in the US, like Kash Patel, who was the FBI director, who's the FBI director in the US. I don't think he's not raised in India. He doesn't come with the same culture. He holds his whole life, his whole psychological makeup is built up on open communication and on a more open, being open about himself than we are. I don't think he understands much of our own society either. So I feel open communication is something that will help us move forward, is what I think. I feel it's a sort of a form of a releasing our mind.
No, it has to be, and that is where I was coming to the same point that you were saying, that in the society, you see, we create barriers in our own families, that we do not have to speak this way to others, or we do not have to say these things at a certain point of time. We create our barriers in our own families first. So I think that is how the society grows, because in each family, if we have these kind of barriers, there will be always barrier to talk to others as well, and sharing your thoughts about yourself or about society, the honest opinions. And I think that is where we also see in international communication. If you see many countries, whenever they speak about India, they kind of not speak well about India, and India is do not take a stand. Many times we have seen take a stand which sometimes can be delayed response from our side. So this is what we see, because we want to be not so when someone is certainly criticizing you for some things, I think we should be upfront and saying that no, these are not the things this is not how we see India, and we have a lot of good things also. I think this is, I think, because of this, in the families and the societies also, we do not come forward and speak honestly. And I think the first thing what we need to do as an individual, I think, is we have to speak honestly about ourselves first. Because we have seen that if we are not, like you said, people fake things. They are not what they do not follow what they preach, what they're preaching outside. And that is how the problem is creating these days, especially when there is a social sites where people fake a lot of things about themselves. And I've seen that recently I got to know that there was a reel that came about Shah Rukh Khan. I think he advertised himself as a very poor kid, and kind of he does not have any support in the industry. He comes from a very
Right.
humble family. But then when somebody explored his background and kept it open to society, to people, that he was already, his family, I think someone was from UPSC, he was IAS or IPS, something like that. His mother was also on a high post in certain college. So you see, this is how few people try to
In fact, with regards to his story, while he was coming up, it was told to us that he was related to one of the producers as a
yes,
distant
exactly,
cousin or
yes,
something. Now
yes,
now they tell us he's related to no one in the film industry.
yes. Yes.
The story is just continuously changing with regards to the man. So yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that is how things are being made up in social sites, and open communication, I think, is the way where people have to say that this is how I am, and even if people are faking things about themselves, I think one has to take it takes courage to be what you are and speak about yourself. Speaking, if you are speaking truth about yourself, like you said, the confidence, it will come from there. This is who you are. I think
Right.
if you speak about yourself, you will also understand your position, where you are right now, and then maybe you will try to improve yourself, and with that confidence you will do. Otherwise, making things, and then if you are not, then truth will come eventually, and then at the time where your confidence will.
Right. So I just love that line about speaking truthfully about your own self. I guess even Shakespeare had one of these lines in his Hamlet, where he says, "Speak truthfully to your own self, then you can be false to no man." So be honest about your own self. I think that, that is a very crucial thing, and one of the gifts that we get, or one of the rewards that comes out of that kind of honesty about speaking to yourself about yourself, is a sense of release from a lot of stress, a lot of this need to project yourself as something, using a lot of psychological and mental energy in order to be something that you're not. All this creates stress, a lot of problems within you, and that at one shot you can release it once you learn the habit of being more honest about yourself and not really caring what too much about what society thinks about you, or in fact creating a society that is more free in its mind, because of its honest communication also, is something that will release a lot. They don't feel like they have to just live for people that will probably never feed them if they're hungry. They are actually living for people who would never drop a piece of rice or a piece of roti in front of them if they are hungry. So this is who they are creating, all the spending so much psychological energy in order to satisfy, and that's just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time. And holding on to a lie, or keeping a lie maintained, is something that is very difficult. It's very difficult. It's better, you see, I don't believe that a man can be 100% honest, but it requires you to be almost machine-like, because human beings are flawed. And I think at least a 90% level of honesty is something very crucial in order for you to release a lot of psychological drainage, difficulties in trying to maintain a persona that you're not in front of others who have intellectual skills to see through you as well. So they also spend time trying to break you down whenever they need to. And for that, you have defensive walls, and your mind keeps working on things that have no need for you to work on.
So
Creating a kind of,
I have a question for you, Rahul, or maybe Hemant, if you want
yeah.
to answer. So now, if you're saying we want a society to be open about their communications, about themselves or their shortcomings or
Can you be a
their
bit louder, Anupam? A bit
sorry.
slightly louder.
So we want people to be open about themselves, about their shortcomings and things. But do you think, with the technology that is coming in place right now, with AI and everything, where we are generally talking to our AI partner rather than, I think the mostly we speak honestly is to our AI partners. When we are, I mean, when we are speaking something about our problems to Chat GPT or something like that. So, do you
Right,
think
right,
with
right.
these technology coming up, I think time for now is we will go more back rather than being open. Our doors to communication will shut more rather than being with this use of technology. What do you think?
Are you saying that if we use this technology and since we're being honest to this technology, we'll start being open to others, or we'll start closing?
I'm saying opposite. Because of the use
Okay,
of
we'll close
technology,
down.
now we will now
Oh,
talk.
okay, all right, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, actually, I think that when it comes to open communication and honest speaking, I think that like you rightly said, a man who is honest to himself is the one who learns more honesty. So when he talks to ChatGPT, he only goes as far as he goes to himself, and sometimes not even so far, because he might be a little bit afraid that the technology may be watched
Yes.
by someone else. He could have that kind of a fear, or be studied by companies. Based on that, he probably would take it a step less than how honest he is to himself. So I feel that it won't really matter so much. It's going to be the same thing. He's going to be as close, as open as he was to the society before. He's going to have a certain level that he keeps with ChatGPT, and he's going to have a certain level that he keeps with himself also. And beyond that, he's not going to see. You can never be as honest to society as you are to yourself. Okay. It's just that when you're more honest to yourself about yourself, you become more honest to society also. You don't care about society so much because you come in touch with yourself, but you don't tell them everything that you know either way, whatever happens. So you always have that level of difference between the communication level that you offer to society, because society needs boundaries. Okay. If you don't have communication boundaries, you can't communicate. Okay. So openness does not mean breaking down boundaries completely. Okay. It means knowing your boundaries. You're critically knowing where your boundaries are, but not being affected so much by judgment of other people. But when you talk about yourself, all right, when you talk about what it is you like, or what it is you want, like for instance, let's say you come from a family where your mom and dad are divorced, all right, and you're asked this question in your office. It is not something that they need to know, right? They don't need to know whether your mom and dad are divorced. It's not their. If you're an open communicator, you don't need to tell them, yes, I'm proud my mom and dad have parted ways. You don't need to do that. What you can do is you can tell them that this is not something that you need to enter into. This is not really anything that you have a say in, or you don't need to have an opinion on that, or you don't need to know. This is my personal issue, and I don't feel like saying it. That's an open communicator. He knows his boundaries, but at the same time, he is able to tell them, don't get in. Rather, the other person, and a person who is not doesn't communicate openly, would immediately say, I had the greatest parents. They just loved each other so much. My mom really loves me. My dad really, they loved each other so much. That's a person who's trying to set a standard or live the standard of set by somebody else. You see, especially when we look at Indian societies, I guess maybe in certain societies where it's more common, or it doesn't really matter, that they probably would, they would just say, yes, my mom and dad divorced them, because it's maybe more commonly accepted. But in here, in Indian society, this is a case that we can look at where we discuss open communication in workplaces or wherever it is that you're. It's not that you reveal everything about yourself. It's that you have the guts to take certain stances, but at the same time, you're not afraid of who you are. You know the boundaries, but you're not afraid of who you are, and you're not worried. Maybe the same colleague who asked you this a little later on becomes a friend and not just a colleague. And he asks you maybe when you're at a get together somewhere, and you say, yes, my parents actually were not together. It doesn't, you're not someone who cowers to judgment of others when you're an open communicator and an honest speaker. Because you honestly feel that that person doesn't need to know this particular piece of information. You've told him.
True.
And that is the way that we have to look at open communication. It's not a forgetting of boundaries, but rather an understanding of boundaries and a lack of fear to be who you are.
True.
Not competing with each other, because I once happened to see an interview where 3 women were discussing their boyfriends and their husband I think one or two of them had a husband and the others had a boyfriend or something. They were discussing the speed at which they drive. And it became a competition. My boyfriend really drives so fast. My husband drives so fast. When they started, talking about how fast their husband drives a car. The truth is, I'm sure the poor guy, you could see it that some of them, the poor guy was probably driving at 50 km per hour. That's the best he could do, you understand? So she was just competing. Her communication was about being a standard set by someone else. It's not something honest, not something frank. And when people do that, I see a lot of people who keep lying to themselves about who they are, gaslighting themselves, gaslighting others, telling themselves, spending a lot of time showing each other that they're wealthier than the next man, possess more than the next person. Spend so much of their time doing that. I don't know, they have with them baggage, a lot of psychological baggage that even if they were millionaires, that they would pay that money just to set themselves free. Why do they need to be in that position when they can be free without it? They can keep their money and they can be free, but they don't wish that on themselves, simply because they never communicate honestly. And we don't have a culture that communicates. If we have a culture or a society that communicates honestly, that's rewarded. But when we have a society that does not communicate honestly, that's punished. It looks at a way to punish or to neglect, or even the man who is psychologically free. They don't like the man who is psychologically free. They prefer the man who has a complex or who carries his burden, this terrible burden with him. That is something that I think is not good for a society. It doesn't allow a society to rechannel psychological resources to something positive and constructive. Rather, we spend ourselves carrying a lot of baggage. How is it if you're going to run a 10 kilometer race or a 15 kilometer race for holding on to 50 kilograms of baggage? You can never do it the way that a man who doesn't have the baggage does it, isn't it? They'll run at different paces and they'll both be, they won't be in the same state of fitness when they reach the finish line. The second man carries the baggage might just collapse. He might not be able to do anything more, whereas the first guy can go back to office or go on working, things like that. So the thing is that we don't need to carry that weight with us that is always there by this lack of freedom and open speaking, releasing ourselves and knowing our boundaries, things like that. So that is what I think. So guys, yes, I think we've come to the end of our session today. And it was wonderful speaking with you guys, as always. All those thoughts and opinions were profound and very interesting. So yes, I hope our viewers also enjoyed it. And I'm sure they will subscribe to our channel to get more information whenever we come out with more. Yeah? Okay, guys, take care. And good night to all of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.